Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are talking about the locations that the boys visited that we'd like to visit too. Some of them real, some of them fictional. They, of course, got two guys traveling the roads in the Impala, went to a lot of places, and some of those are pretty interesting. So we're going to just take a little road trip with them. But before we start, let's let my guest introduce herself. Lynn?
Hi, I'm Lynn Kramer. I'm a professor at the University of South Carolina, and I've been a fan for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years when I found the series, and, as you like to say, fell down the rabbit hole and everything. So it's become an obsession.
Absolutely. And I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail will write epic and urban fantasy, as Morgan I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. But all my modern day worlds are ones Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. I fell in love halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons before the start of season 12, and haven't looked back since. So start us off, Lynn. Pick a place that you'd like to go.
Well, based on like some of the early seasons, I was thinking about this, and I've been to a few of the places, but I think the biggest one, and I think this is the one that anybody would have to say, would be Lawrence,
Mm-hmm.
Kansas. Especially since yesterday I was watching a video where they were talking about how Lawrence was chosen for one of the World Cup teams and how welcoming everybody was to this team.
Mm-hmm.
And that just made me want to go even more because it's like, okay, you got the Sam and Dean references, and I'm pretty sure they have like a supernatural walk, don't they?
I actually saw a different article that said that Lawrence didn't have a supernatural museum,
Okay.
which they thought was a big omission, but that there was some kind of display
Hmm.
in a town a few bits over. So
Okay.
I'm not sure, but yes, I mean, got to at least say you've been there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be interesting to go to just kind of pretend, that some of the places and seeing them, even though they didn't use Lawrence for
Mm-mm.
the show. Obviously, it's one of those things, because they were up in Toronto and everything, but I think it would be kind of fun just to go and do an imagine what if kind of tour of it.
Yeah, this is when you realize that apparently an awful lot of places in Canada look like a lot of places in the United States because it was pretty well filmed around Vancouver and thereabouts. So yeah, and they did come into the
Sorry,
northern
Vancouver, not Toronto.
sphere of the United States, but they didn't get around to quite so many of the other places. I had to laugh when I saw that Lafayette, Indiana showed up in Hunted in one of the early seasons. Our son went to Purdue University, which is in West Lafayette. And
Oh, okay.
I didn't connect it at the time. I don't think I was quite into the show back then, but it was like, well, damn, didn't see anything haunted when I was there. How about another
Wow.
one, Lynn?
Well, I've been to LA,
Mm-hmm.
and so when they were going through the lot and everything and how they were doing things just kind of brought back, memories and stuff. It would be kind of interesting to go up and into Vancouver and see if they have anything up there that's, similar so you can kind of do a little another imagine if
Mm-hmm.
visitation kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been to Katanning and Nazareth in Pennsylvania and Indianapolis in Indiana, all of which were in Phantom Traveler, again, early in season one, although the Indianapolis scenes were apparently filmed in the Vancouver International Airport. Um, so that's kind of interesting. There are definitely places in Pennsylvania that I would not doubt at all are haunted. I don't know that I'd have
Mm,
necessarily pegged Kittanning and Nazareth for those, but we'll get to them because I think they get mentioned further down. Um, and in terms of ones that I would like to, and I got to say this is an iffy one. The site itself was fictional, but there are certainly many real analogies, and that's in Asylum, the Roosevelt
mm,
Asylum. In fact,
mm,
there was just a big thing about a huge Kirkbride facility that burned recently. The
mm.
Trans-Allegheny Hospital, I think, from that era. God bless, Chuck bless the people who have the nerve to go explore those. I wouldn't set foot in it for all the money in the world, but I love to watch the videos when other people go.
Yeah, I'm not sure as far as the asylums and whatnot. I mean, part of me would be really interested, and another part of me is like, do I really want to tempt fate on something like that? Maybe in the daylight.
Well, aside from the whole getting arrested thing,
Well, there's that.
but I can give credibility to a lot of stuff enough to say I don't really want anything from there to stick to my shoes, so to speak, and follow me
Yeah.
home.
Oh,
That
I
just
get you on that.
some things you should just leave alone. And fascinating as those places are, and they are architectural marvels. I mean, terrible things happened in them, and people suffered a great deal, but the
Yeah.
buildings were pretty. You know. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what was such a loss with this one that just burned. But yeah, I don't really want to go there. Give us another one.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, going back and I was glancing down to see as far as the different places, and they had gone to a lot of different places in California, and I love California. So it would be kind of interesting to do maybe a road trip kind of thing where you
Hmm.
start and bounce around from place to place because a lot of them are small. There's not much there, but then you get some of the big places. Like I've never been to San Francisco. And so that would be a fun kind of, I think, road trip to do. I mean, you could do a cross country road trip with some of the main places and probably do multiple cross country road trips,
And there are
but
maps online that would guide you.
color me shocked on that one. I think a road trip would be super fun to visit different places, but especially I think California would be
Hmm.
a good one.
Yeah. I wish Harvell's Roadhouse was real. Um,
Yeah.
Bobby Singer's Salvage Yard in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I don't know that I want to drive to either rural Nebraska or South Dakota to experience the what if, but I wish the places that we saw in the show were real. Um, I'm flipping down through here and saying, um,
Well, you've got Chicago. They
yeah,
listed Chicago early on with that one, and I've been through the airport,
hmm
but I've never actually been anywhere. Wait, I think I was at a conference, a work meeting kind of thing there once, but we went right from the airport to whatever hotel it was, and we did not have time to go explore anything. So I've never been in Chicago to see some of the things. So it might be interesting to plan a trip that kind of sparks some of those. Wasn't Chicago a couple of times? It
hmm
wasn't just early on because that's where the spin-off, one of the spin-offs was going to
yeah,
happen, the back door with the
yeah,
vampires and everything, right?
I think so.
Yes. So I think that would be an interesting one to do. Look at Chicago from that end because of course you've got all the famous monuments like the Bean and stuff
Hmm.
like that, but it would be I think a little more interesting to wander the streets and stuff and look for some vampires.
Yeah. Yeah, I have been to Chicago and San Francisco in the same way you have, in that I was there for a meeting. I got to see the meeting and the airport, and maybe, have the cab driver point to something on the way past or have the night before. Um, but there would be a lot of cool things to explore in those cities, as well as, oh, gee, Sam and Dean were here. Um, And the same is true with Los Angeles. You know, they did Hollywood in Hollywood Babylon. And tawdry and tacky as it is, I have never been on a studio backlot tour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I've done it I think twice now out at Universal and stuff like that and gone around and everything. Another place that would be fun to go, but that would be fun to go back to. It would be fun to go back to Philly, to
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia, and see it from that viewpoint rather than because I grew up 70 miles northwest of Philly, and my undergrad college is outside of it. So we used to wander around. I even worked for a theater. I had an internship at a theater downtown, little small thing. So I got used to driving around the streets and everything like that. So it would be kind of interesting to go. I can't remember how much of Philadelphia got used though for that. I know it lists it for the one episode, but I don't
Yeah.
know how often they went back for it.
Well, and sometimes they'll do an establishing shot, but then everything else is filmed elsewhere.
Yeah, it is kind of different. There was the God, where was it? There was somewhere that's going to be way later on. Where did they go overseas? Where was it they went over for Crowley? That one time they managed to get Dean on a plane. Like,
Did they go to Wales
was it,
or was it
was it
Ireland?
in Wales?
I think so.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I've been to England several times. My study abroad, we were in London and everything like that, and then they took us around, but we didn't go to Wales.
Hmm.
So again, it'd be like another
Hmm.
excuse to go over and
Right.
see. I don't know, I'd have to track down where if that's real, the place that they
Hmm.
specifically went to, but it'd be interesting.
Yeah. Now in Malleus Maleficarum, that was theoretically Sturbridge, Massachusetts. I've been to Old Sturbridge Village, which is very interesting. I assume it would be haunted because it is a bunch of very old buildings that have been lovingly restored. Um, so that's pretty cool. Dream a Little Dream of Me, which is the next one, um, ostensibly took place in Pittsburgh, which we lived there for 10 years, loved it, and it has a lot of haunted history and haunted places in the city, which is pretty cool. And then in Mystery Spot, Broward County, Florida,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was gonna
come
say.
on, all of Florida is basically haunted. We know Florida. It's really easy to believe that all of that could happen in Florida because anything can happen in Florida. Back to you, Lynn.
Yeah, I forgot about the Pittsburgh reference. I have a niece who lives outside of Pittsburgh, so I've been up several times, and I like it. I do like the city.
Hmm.
It's a different feel. Anywhere they were with the mountains, when
Hmm.
they were up in the woods, and especially early on and everything, that would be kind of fun to go tromping around. I know it
Hmm.
doesn't exist, but the cabin that they had in the
Hmm.
woods, finding something that might be similar to that or as close to like a look of that one would be a lot of fun to stay in. And I'm
Hmm.
sure there's got to be something somewhere where, like in Colorado, I love Colorado.
Hmm.
Going out there, I wouldn't mind seeing Wyoming and Montana and just, well, I wouldn't wear jeans like Dean did. That would be a little silly, but it would be fun to kind of tromp around and
Hmm.
again imagine, you know.
Yeah. Well, Giuseppello was filmed in Monument, Colorado, or ostensibly set in Monument, Colorado.
Right.
So there you go. Time is on My Side was set theoretically in Erie, Pennsylvania. I grew up
Mm,
just south of Erie. So,
okay, I've not been.
um, I think Pittsburgh has a lot more of the um, Victorian era, early 1900s architecture because that's when it was ascendant with the steel mills and the coal and all of that. Um, so Erie doesn't strike me as clearly haunted, but it's just cool to see it show up on the list. We have a lot of Sioux Falls and Pontiac, Illinois, and
Yeah,
Lawrence, Kansas showing up. Um,
Portland would be nice. I've
mhm.
always wanted to go to Portland. That would definitely be a good excuse to go there.
Cannonsburg, Pennsylvania shows up as the setting for Monster Movie, which again,
Well, yeah. Uh,
another place I've been that just didn't strike me as, oh, I should set a ghost story here. But who knew? Which makes you
oh,
wonder, how did they pick some of these towns? Canonsburg's not a big place. Erie, as cities go, is not a huge city. Did
I don't think
somebody,
Chester is either.
no,
Yeah.
did one of the writers have connection, have some sort of personal connection? How did they pick this? Because, I mean, I do that. I pick locations for books and
Right.
stories based on places I've been or places I have lived. Um, it just makes me wonder how some of these odd places got picked because you wouldn't just say, oh, I mean, like New Orleans. You know you're going to set a ghost story in New Orleans. You know the boys are going to have reasons to go to New Orleans because,
Or Seattle or Vegas. Yeah.
yeah, they're famous for things. But some of these others that are small, you just wonder what's the connection?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what's interesting about this. I mean, you go down and you see like Fairfield, Iowa. I don't know how big that is, but it doesn't sound very big.
Hmm.
I could be wrong. Apologies to anybody from
Hmm.
Fairfield who's like, hey, wait a minute.
I love the idea of Kripke's Hollow, Ohio. It doesn't exist, but wouldn't it be nice if it did?
Yeah, yeah. There's certain things that you just, I like that they do well, I get why they had to repeat a lot
Hmm.
because they had to, reusing the same, similar sets and everything like that just made it a lot easier. Plus it gives them kind of a easy location moving
Hmm.
around and stuff like that because they could be settled in kind of one area. I can't imagine they were going from one end to the other all the time.
Hmm.
That would just be kind of ridiculous. Although, I mean, we don't really think about it much because we expect that from one episode to the next, they might have, we don't know how much time is necessarily elapsed,
Hmm.
although sometimes we do.
Hmm.
And it can take them quite a while to get somewhere, but you can get across country, easily in 3 days. You gotta
Yeah,
stay awake and drive a long time.
and gas was
But
cheaper.
yeah, yeah, it was. I've been across country twice. Once from Pennsylvania to California and once from South Carolina to California and back. So,
I have gone from Maine to to Key West many times, made that drive or portions of that drive. I have flown to get to the West Coast, and the Midwest, but I have driven, um, from the East Coast into Indiana and Chicago and places like that. So halfway, but not the whole way. Um, And you're right. They would have had to, it made sense for them to repeat just to save on set dressing and um it wouldn't, I mean, we all tend to return places. I have to laugh. And then there was none is set in Sandusky, Ohio, which is best known for Cedar Point,
oh yeah, the
huge
big theme
amusement park.
park.
Yeah.
It's surprising that they didn't do a little nod of them, getting some time off and going there. But, then again, maybe they're not into rides.
Well, I can find out,
Excuse me.
I can imagine finding out that Dean actually hates roller coasters. Um,
That's
and
what I was picturing. I could see Sam maybe liking them, although he's, as far as being so tall, I don't know how comfortable he is in those. But
mm,
yeah, yeah, I could see Dean being like, no, I'm done.
but then again, it's one of those where they would have had to actually go there
Mm.
to be able to do um, the
It's kind of
stunt.
funny that they never did anything in an actual amusement park, a haunted amusement park. I
Hmm.
mean, they came close with some of like the carnival and everything, but that was the closest you got to it was the traveling car, excuse me, circus or carnival.
Especially when you realize that there are actually abandoned amusement parks in
Hmm.
various stages of decay, from recently closed and still very well in shape, recognizable,
Hmm.
roller coaster track and everything, to ones where it's just a few, things overgrown, but definitely creepy. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you've also got the malls, the abandoned
Mm-hmm.
malls now. I mean, I don't think at the time this was set, there wasn't that much of that going on,
Mm-hmm.
but they certainly could have done the amusement park
Mm-hmm.
thing. I mean, you got Knoebels up in Pennsylvania, which has gotten a little bit of press lately as being a really great
Mm-hmm.
attraction to go to. I mean, I've gone to it numerous
Mm-hmm.
times as a kid, and because of its rustic appearance and whatnot, that would have been a perfect place for them to set an episode of something, going on.
Mm-hmm.
But
No,
it's a,
I agree. And much as I love and loved going to amusement parks growing up and taking my kids, um, when they're abandoned and shut down, they're creepy. Really creepy. I don't know why those things that are very happy in the daytime are really creepy at night, but they definitely are. Now,
yeah.
here's one for you that I think would be interesting to visit for real is Lilydale, New York, because of its history with the spiritualist movement.
Okay.
And that is real. Real location, real connection to the spiritualists in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and the psychics and the people who, really believed and studied the ability to, um, well, work with psychic phenomenon.
Did they ever go to Salem? I don't remember.
I think so.
I think they went, but I don't remember what episode that was set.
No, I'm scrolling down through the wiki and,
Yeah.
taking a look at some of the ones. Got Chicago again. And
Yeah, and also I mean, one other reason for them revisiting places is that there's not just one monster per town.
right, right.
I mean, you're definitely not in somewhere as big as Chicago, but even out in the middle of the boondocks, there's not just going to be a singular, more than likely, creature running amok. So they'd have to clear out an area, but I don't know that they ever completely managed to clear anything out.
No, I do think it's interesting, with the premise of the show, these two guys in a big old muscle car driving the not super highways, the back roads, the secondary highways through these little towns that time forgot. Um, that alone is very evocative. But when you realize how many of these little towns that aren't much of anything now used to be a big deal for one reason or another, they had coal mines and the mines are gone. They had steel mills and the mills are gone. They had, you know, big things. And for the time, they were a big deal. And now you see these big old mansions that are left to rot because the industry is gone, the rich people are gone. Um, that is such a piece of Americana, and it's so real, even if they make
Yeah.
up fictional towns. And you can imagine the ghosts of the things that were left behind, because when the mills closed or the mines closed and the owners packed up and moved out, well, there was a whole town there. Now what do you do? And some of them,
Yeah, and also the places that are built over old cemeteries or burial grounds or something like that, or they might not even know that they are because there's no records.
well, that's really in the headlines right now, is that they are finding, you know, they go to build a new building on a campus. I don't remember which university, and oh my God, we didn't know there was a cemetery here. Yeah, that's real. Um, I'm
And Detroit would probably be interesting as well.
Detroit is one of those places that everybody thinks looks post-apocalyptic, and there are certainly neighborhoods that do, but there are also parts of Detroit that certainly don't. Um, so that's one of those things that you could find whatever you're looking for, whatever you're looking for. Um,
They didn't travel as much later on. So I
no,
think the later seasons, that's why it's harder and harder to find places that they had gone because they pretty much stayed within the fictional ones that were created. And stuff like
Hmm.
that. So I think that's why we were, when, before we started, it was like, well, mostly what my brain could remember, come up with were fictional places. Which
Hmm.
places would I or would I not, go to?
Yeah, I agree. And Chicago does. Bloodlines was the one you were thinking of that was
Thank
supposed to
you.
be a spin-off with the vampires in Chicago. Um, I have to laugh that Somerset, Pennsylvania is in Road Trip because if you have gone across the Pennsylvania Turnpike, you know Somerset, Pennsylvania very well. It's a huge road stop. Um, I don't know that I ever thought of it as being particularly haunted, but it's a great place to get gas and a burger. Um, but you're right. They had the once they had the bunker,
Yeah.
I would love to explore the bunker, you know.
I mean, we know they went out and they hunted,
Hmm.
but most of the episodes were them either getting back from that, or if they had to go out, it was, briefly and very specific, like when they went out with Jack and were going out west with the cowboy hats and everything, and
Hmm.
then they had that whole little sequence of them walking and whatnot. And that, I don't remember what area that was or what the episode was,
Hmm.
but it could have been anywhere, Texas
Hmm.
or Oklahoma or whatnot. And it just seemed like it was, it was interesting. Of course, motels. The motels were in the areas, but we didn't necessarily see the towns. We saw more of the hotels or
Hmm.
motels than we saw of sometimes the towns themselves.
Hmm.
So this is a really hard one to talk about as far as where do you want to go unless you can find some history stuff
Hmm.
to
Well,
come up with.
New Orleans would have just been, you could have shot the whole show in New Orleans
Oh yeah.
because everywhere you turn around is haunted. And proud of it. It's on their business cards, um, but
I love New
nowhere,
Orleans. It's great.
yeah, it is. And not to mention the food and everything, the food, the music, everything, but nowhere else looks like New Orleans.
Mm-mm.
That's hard to fake in Canada.
Mm.
And the whole atmosphere, not only of the city, but the bayou, the swamp, the area around it. It is great for a horror series, but that's not one that you can fake.
Which is also probably why they never went down to the Keys or anywhere where they had with the palm trees and what other than Los Angeles, because how are you gonna
Right.
do that up there?
Yeah. No, I agree. But boy, it sure would have been great to see them tromping around New Orleans and dealing with all of the stuff going on there.
Oh yeah, and they could definitely have done a few episodes in a row with that one, and it would have been. I mean, they would have had to be going. They would have had to be fighting vampires
Hmm.
there. They're
At
like
one
that.
point.
Just it would have been a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, and if they could have somehow made a nod to Anne Rice with all of that,
Mhm.
it just there would have been a way to do that because their vampires that they had in the show were very similar to
Yes.
what
Yes.
Rice came up with.
Well, and you mentioned the motels, the roadside motels. When I was a kid in the late 1960s, early 1970s, and I would road trip with my parents, the national chains like there are now that are more mid-price or upscale weren't around, especially in the rural areas. And in some places, they still aren't. And those hotels were not, at least in my memory, as skeevy looking or dangerous as they are in some places now because that was all there was,
Hmm.
just like the diners. There weren't the national chains once you got away from the bigger cities and you were out in the middle of nowhere. Um, there weren't the national chain restaurants at that time. So I've got to admit, it makes me kind of nostalgic looking at some of those roadside motels because I've stayed in places like that back in
Hmm.
the day. Um, and at the
And
time,
it would feel interesting to do it again, but it wouldn't feel the same.
no, no.
No.
And, while some of them are well preserved because they're in tourist places where they can do that, some of them definitely, you'd need to be Sam and Dean to not, to wake up alive and as well armed and everything. Um,
It's hard to go back to the places that remember from your childhood because
mhm.
unfortunately things change and there's not much you can do about it. I think it's interesting that they did spend so much time in Lawrence, going back and forth to Lawrence because they didn't grow up there much.
No.
I mean, they left pretty early on, so they don't really have any true memories attached to the place. A little bit to the house, but otherwise it's like,
Well, and the house burned, you know.
well, yeah, they're.
I mean, they really spent more of their growing up years when they weren't with their dad in the car at
Right,
Bobby's.
right.
Um,
That was the closest they had to a home.
yeah, like I said, I wish that you could tour their bunker. I have seen places that are real bunkers left over from the war, that some of them are open to tours and some of them are just, you know, fodder for urban explorers, but
Right.
they're still there. You know, they were built to last through a nuclear holocaust, so they're not going anywhere.
No, no. And it could, I mean, somebody could probably convert one into an almost Airbnb kind of experience with it. And I could totally see somebody doing that. I mean, they do it with the cabins
Hmm.
and whatnot, where they make them themed and everything. So, or, like you were mentioning, the asylums or haunted hotels, people turn those into attractions and give it what it is. I mean, they stayed in a few. Where was the one? Where what? I'm thinking of when they did. Was it the Lizzie Borden house?
Yeah.
So that would be
That's in
interesting to visit.
Ohio. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is a museum. Well, and abandoned hospitals. I, you know, I am in a few, I lurk in a few Facebook groups that are abandoned places and urban explorers. And like I said, I I just write about this stuff and watch it on TV. I haven't gone out and do it. I'm not that brave, but I love seeing what they purport to find and what's left behind and you know some of those would have made great sets. If you
hmm,
discount the rats and the asbestos and you know
yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Well, that and the lack of sanitary amenities and whatnot.
All of those details and trivial details. Yes, yes, yes.
Ah, yeah, just put a porta potty in the
That's
corner
right.
somewhere.
Well, I have a few additions to my bucket list from going through all of these. Many of the
Yeah,
ones that I'm most interested in are fictional, so
yeah,
darn it.
exactly. I might be as that might be a different different episode is,
Yes.
which what are the fictional places? Because like I said, that was easiest part for me. I've been thinking about it since yesterday, going, oh my God, where would I want? And I kept going, well, is that what we're going to talk about? Are we talking about the actual places? And I knew we were going to talk about some of them, but that's a lot harder when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It just is, especially knowing that they shot up in Vancouver and didn't actually use the real places.
Or they didn't do the whole episode in the real places. I'm betting
Right.
that for some of these, they still sent a cameraman to go get some establishing shots
Oh yeah.
and then filmed the interiors in Vancouver. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot cheaper to send somebody with a camera for a weekend and a list of pictures than to actually film an episode there and move
Right.
everybody that entails.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't. Oh my God. Could you imagine their budget if they had gone from place to place?
Hmm.
That would have just been insane. It wouldn't have worked.
No. So fortunately, a lot of Canada looks like a lot of the United States when you get out in the middle of places. So, well, this has been fun. It's been a great what if. But we are out of time. So, Lynn, tell us where we can find you online.
You can find me under Lynn Kramer on Facebook or on Instagram. Instagram, I have a 34 after my name, and yeah, I'm easy to track down.
Okay. I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. If you spell those right, you'll find me on most of the social medias. I'm probably most active on Facebook, but I'm on all of them. And of course, I'm here on Continual, and I also run a supernatural group on Facebook, so come check it out. Thank you so much for spitballing this with me tonight, Lynn, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more supernatural coming up on Continual, so we'll see you online.